Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
He said he gon' huff and puff and blow my mind up. You meet the island girl, she might dirty wine up.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank J23 for the intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. My guest today is Dr. Tom Ingegno. Dr. Tom is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. He's a clinician, speaker, and best-selling author of The Cupping Book, which I have right here, and we're going to be talking about that. With over 23 years in integrative and functional medicine, Dr. Tom's multidimensional approach focuses on reducing inflammation, improving circulation, and regulating the immune system. Hey, perfect timing where we're at here in the season, cold and flu season. Dr. Tom uses modern research, traditional practices, and humor to make complex treatments understandable, helping patients and practitioners develop a no-nonsense approach to thriving. And we started talking before we hit the record button. He definitely has a sense of humor, which I can appreciate. Tom, welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Deepak, I'm so happy to be here, man. I knew we were going to hit it off, and I think we're going to have a great time.
Absolutely. Got lots of things to get into. I like to start off with asking this question, or some version of this question. I'm going to make the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, that when you were a little kid growing up, you didn't think, I want to be a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So how did you get to where you're at today?
I think I'm hoping this tradition breaks, but I was in the family where it's like you work hard. My descendants of immigrants, if you will, 3 generations out. Hey, the people before you busted their hump, you better be a banker, lawyer, doctor, something like that, right?
Right.
I wanted to help people. My grandfather, who was a huge influence in my life, was a pharmacist in a town where there was a large Latino community. He learned Spanish for him, and they would refer to him as doctor. He was kind of a big influence, like I said, in kind of getting into healthcare. So I was lined up to be pre-med, and sometimes best intentions, these events that kind of happened were so serendipitous, so out of the ordinary that I couldn't ignore them, including before my grandfather passed. I used to help clean and stock shelves and stuff in his pharmacy, and I remember him counting out pills for one of the day laborers that would come in. And this is probably 93 or 94. I think he died in 94. And he looked at me and he goes, these pills are $5 a piece. And he's got to take 3 of these every day the rest of his life. And he's not making much money. Do you understand how much that impacts his entire family? Right? This financial tie to our health. And he then looked at me and he said, there's got to be a better way. I hope you find it. And I stored that.
Powerful words.
Yeah, and I had trauma from his death. That was the first person I'd lost that was close to me, and I stuck that away. So here I am at college, junior and sophomore year, and my mom used to run an auction for our high school. And we get donations from all of these like bougie places, North Shore of Long Island. And one of them was like a bookstore. So I come home for, one holiday break, and I see a book sitting on top of these piles of books she's putting into baskets. And it's called Opening the Dragon Gate. And it was a story about a relatively modern Taoist priest, 50s, 60s, right around the time of the Cultural Revolution. And it's talking about reincarnation and all these fantastic, like, oh, he's doing qigong in the woods and he can see the colors, and it kind of like how much of it's true, how much of it's sensationalized, how much of it is just part of the training that you kind of creatively visualize yourself. But it kind of stuck with me a little bit. And then when I got back to school, I signed up for a Tai Chi class. And I also happened to be in a philosophy class that was focused on Asian philosophy. So Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism. And, these concepts of balance started to resonate with me. Now, through a course of events that weren't so good at the time, my financial aid package changed. They took away grants and they gave me a bigger loan. And my parents said, we can't justify you staying there. So I shifted schools. And the school I shifted to was associated with an osteopathic school. hey, I'm still on course, right? I'm going to be a doctor. It's just a DO, not an MD. Save a few bucks. I kind of have a pipeline into the school because I'm in this program. And during that break, which was my junior year Christmas break, I got a postcard in the mail from an acupuncture school for an open house. It's like, that I kind of don't want to do traditional medicine, which is funny to call it traditional medicine, modern medicine, let's say.
Right.
And I went to the open house, and the dean's selling, right? He's pitching. But we walked around to the classrooms. I looked at the artwork. We saw the student clinic, and it just felt right, man. It felt so right that I walked over to the bursar and took my application and financial aid and filled everything out. And by the time I started my junior year, and this was the compromise with my parents, I could start that program because there's no undergrad in East Asian medicine.
Right.
So I was going to come out with a bachelor's and a master's. My parents were still a little like, is this a real school? Is this accredited? All those questions. So I did my second semester junior year with my first semester of my master's program. At the same time, I was carrying 32 credits in bartending. And let me tell you, I've never done so well in school. I loved it. I loved everything I was learning. The undergrad Western bioscience classes were partnering great with the master level classes. And after that semester, I skipped my senior year. Essentially, I stopped going to my undergrad classes. And then years later, they added a doctorate, and I went back for that. That didn't exist when I started. But all of these things seemed to line up. Even how I ended up in Baltimore, I was looking to leave Long Island, and I felt like Baltimore. I did some undergrad down here, and I felt like it was the right place, wrong time. I brought my wife down here on a vacation, showed her the Inner Harbor, all the touristy things, and she was like, "Yeah, let's move." And then when I was looking for my license, like, what do I got to get? What do I have to do? What hoops do I have to jump through? I saw this certification in animal acupuncture listed on the state's website. And I contacted the state board, and they said, oh, you got to call this school. And it turns out that 2 weeks later, it was on St. Patty's Day, they were starting a program. So I filled out the application right then and there, enrolled in the program. Now my brother happened to be at a university down here. So I was crashing with him once. Yeah, I think it was 2 times a month. We had classes on a weekend. So for 6 months, I was down here, not only taking animal acupuncture certification courses, but looking for a clinic, looking for a place to rent, for housing. And by the end of that program, we had up and moved, and that was way back in '06. So, this field, to sound new agey, I try to sound as clinical as I possibly can, but very new agey. I just kind of went with the flow, and it guided me here. And now I'm getting to have great conversations with people like you. So it's
Awesome.
been
Amazing,
paying out all the time.
Amazing story. And I think the one thing I want to highlight for the listener is obviously there were certain, like you said, serendipitous occurrences, a postcard, random postcard for some school that just hits you at the right time. You come home, there's just a book that piques your curiosity sitting on the dining room table, like all these things.
Top of the pile, too.
Top of the pile. Like, we can't ignore these things. So people, like, when the universe is sometimes we don't. Hey, I'm guilty. Sometimes we don't listen. We have to be hit over the head like 10 times before we listen. So like, yeah, I'd really just want to say that for the audience. Just listen to those signs. Now, obviously, we could go down a lot of different paths, being acupuncturist and Chinese medicine, but I did want to kind of put a little bit more of focus on cupping, because I did have the opportunity to read your book, and just for everyone, I'll just drop it now. We'll talk about it later. Again, in the show notes will be the link where you can find this book and pick it up for yourself. And so, yeah, like maybe just high level, like what is and I've had cupping. My massage therapist has done cupping for me before, but what is cupping therapy?
So cupping is sometimes is referred to as a vasopneumatic therapy. Fancy way of saying they create a vacuum, they adhere that to the body, and it increases circulation to the tissue, right? So on a very high level, you put the cup on with a negative pressure. you're pulling the skin up into the cup. It creates a space between the skin and the fascia and the muscle, and then you pull more blood through that tissue that's laying below it, because we're a relatively closed system. The great thing about cupping is traditionally it was folk medicine. It was done by grandmas. It was done by the village healer. It was done in households all over the world. And before we knew the silk trade route as the silk trade route, there was other routes going from Europe to Asia, going from the Middle East in both directions, going to Africa, going to Russia. So there's a lot more exchange, and cupping, the oldest source we have is actually, excuse me, the Ebers Papyrus, which is 1515 BC in Egypt. But the Egyptians were writing about it like it had been around for a while. We know that Persian physicians were using it. We know that Hippocrates wrote about it. So it has this vast history with an unknown origin because it's so old. And when I started teaching at an acupuncture school in Manhattan, it had a huge foreign student population.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of those students would say grandma used to do that, right? And it's these ideal practices that we do for health, ideal medicine, right? We have clinical research, we need that. We have practitioner experience with it that knows that it works. And then it fits the culture and the belief systems and the needs. That's what we call evidence-based medicine. It's a Venn diagram. When all three of those things are present, that little triangle in the middle is exactly what evidence-based or evidence-informed practice is. And this strikes all of those. Now we couple it with modern technology on the cover. Those are silicone cups. Traditionally, we would use fire. Going back to the earliest times, they used water buffalo horn or bamboo,
Right.
or clay pots. In my clinic, we still do traditional fire cupping with glass jars. But now with silicone and plastics, we can remove the risk of fire. We can remove the risk of broken glass. And materials are so cheap that, I'm talking about this like it's some crazy practice, but if you walk into an Asian grocery store anywhere in the world and you go down the health section, there's probably a relatively inexpensive cupping kit that'll function pretty well if you clean them nicely and you take care of them. It'll last your whole lifetime, and you'll be able to share that not only with your family, but friends. And the techniques are relatively simple. This book was not meant to be, a theoretical textbook. It was meant to be like, what would grandma have told you? How do I get you up and doing this? And then practice. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I really appreciated, you kind of mentioned, the different types of cups and, using fire and glass and a whole bunch of stuff. But, maybe let's just focus on, again, the silicone one. So I got a set here myself here. So I'll just pull one out. And maybe, you can just talk like how does the therapy actually work, and maybe some of the mechanics of
the mechanics,
somebody wanted to do it self.
Yeah. So the mechanics are, and I'll match you. I've got a pink one over here, but basically what we're doing is when we create this vacuum, and this one's easy enough where we press down and we're squeezing the air out, right? And that'll create the suction. Now, what'll end up happening is under the surface of the skin here, we have a bunch of capillaries in that right below the epidermis in the dermal layer, that will break, right? And that gives you the telltale, circular hickey, for lack of a better term.
So Tom, can I interrupt? So
yeah.
I guess I have probably too large a one for this part of my arm.
To that area, right?
I'm not getting as good.
And the other thing is, like, body hair will affect it as well.
Yeah, and I got
so
hairy
so
arms.
these
I'm
I
half
would
East
try.
Indian. I got hairy arms.
I'm Italian, so it's same on my end. If I go up to the bicep, I'll get a little bit of a better suction there.
Right.
But in the book, I even talk about that: liniments, creams, Chinese herbal topical things that can be added. Good old, like, I don't like Vaseline, but you could use that as well to create a little bit of a layer.
I know I keep interrupting you. I apologize.
No, you're fine, man.
What about, we use it for cooking and other things, but like fractionated coconut oil with maybe
I love
essential
coconut
oil
oil.
mixed in or
something.
something.
I love coconut oil. One of the things I always am concerned about, even in my clinic and our household, is like, is somebody allergic to something? So I would say, like, avoid the nut oils, avoid things that you wouldn't eat, either because of dietary restriction or because of allergy. Don't use those. Coconut oil is amazing. Olive oil is amazing. You have stuff in your kitchen. You probably have stuff in your medicine cabinet that you could use as a base. But any area that's too hairy, you got one of two options: shave or put on some kind of oil.
Right, right.
And certainly the oil is a
what about
little
your
bit
thought
easier.
on pairing with maybe some essential oil in that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you go to the chapter where we talk about liniments and things like that, a lot of the Chinese herbal liniments, menthol, camphor is always in those, right? Menthol is a mint source. Camphor comes from a bunch of different plants. But some of them will have wintergreen oil in it. Really great when we're dealing with like respiratory stuff, right? So we can do this for chest congestion. So we can put that up, right below the clavicle, up top of the pecs, and you can put the cups there after you put that oil on, and now you're breathing it in. So you're getting that aromatherapy to like
What would be the
open
best
up their
one
sinuses.
for, let's say, just general muscle soreness or something?
General muscle
recovery?
soreness, you can get a CBD cream. I like some people will use clove. Clove is pretty strong, so you got to go light on that.
Okay.
But that has an analgesic effect. Camphor and menthol is the old standby, and that is everything from Bengay to Tiger Balm to 1,000 different liniments available in Asia. But it's readily available. If you're looking for specific mixes, I mean, I normally end up buying pre-mixed essential oil things if I'm going to add them to a carrier oil. Because sometimes they're just like I don't want to have 80 little jars. Okay, let me get thieves for immune system function or something like that.
Fair enough. And I know those essential oil type of people. They're great, but yeah, they got their like
Yeah, this
50
one's not
jars.
pure. Ours is pure. And then you Google it and like,
Or
hey, you both
the
have
range,
some.
even just the
Yeah,
range of like
yeah,
every ingredient in the world. So
yeah. And look, also it's going to be on you. If it smells nice to you, that's good enough reason to use it as well.
absolutely. So we kind of got distracted there. So back to
That's
the
fine.
original question, how does you kind of alluded to it, bringing more blood flow, but like how does cupping therapy like actually work?
So this is crazy. When we look at modern studies, we'll show an increase in circulation 6 inches into the body. So if you think about that, if I put a cup on your back, upper back, not only am I going through the muscles, the erectors, the traps, whatever it is, I'm actually hitting lung tissue. So I'm increasing circulation that deep. Now that pull is really kind of for lack of a better term, like rising the tide or raising the tide, So the blood comes to the surface, and behind it, like you're not going to have tissue void of blood. So more blood is going to pull into that. So if we think of tight muscles or we think of an injured area, there's a little bit of stagnation, is what we would classically say in Chinese medicine. The blood is still moving. It's just not moving as well as it should. This happens in areas where we don't have a lot of vasculature too. So joint spaces, those kind of things. What ends up happening when we put this cup on is increasing that blood flow is going to help clear out some of that metabolic waste, some of those things like cytokines, which are inflammatory,
Right.
Lactic acid if you've just worked out. But increasing that circulation to those tissues, with that is going to come fresh oxygen, fresh nutrients. If you have medications in your system, in your bloodstream, that's going to go to that area too. So all of that is going to add to this healing effect of getting fresh blood to that area. So it sounds crazy. I know we're not talking about my whole clinic here, but we offer about 15 different therapies. We know that if we can get the blood moving, we're going to reduce inflammation. And most of them do that via one method or another. So
Okay,
cupping is one of this massive way of doing that. And it does it in a horseshoes and hand grenades kind of local way, right? It's a bigger effect than just where the cup is, but it's not systemic.
Right. Okay. Got it. So I was going to ask a question, but I'm going to park it for a second and ask this one then. So as you mentioned, a bunch of modalities that you can use in your clinic, or that a practitioner like yourself can use. Is cupping like like what you learned, or is this like an adjunct additional tool that you learned later? Like how did you get started with
we
cupping?
would definitely consider it adjunct therapy. When it was taught to me in school, imagine a 3.5 years master's program trying to consolidate 3,000 years of Chinese medicine. And we know Chinese medicine goes back earlier than then. We tend to use 3,000 as like, this is the textbook that survived that we all quote. Within that, cupping had been done in Asia thousands of years before 300 AD. But there was a physician who said, look, you guys are all treating this, and I'm paraphrasing here. So if anyone knows who Ge Hong is, he was a famous Taoist physician. He came up with a lot of crazy treatments. He even possibly did some of the world's first, and this is kind of gross, earliest fecal transplants. And this is about in 300 AD. He wrote about cupping saying, look, you know, this is folk medicine and you think it's beneath you. He was talking to other physicians, but the clinical value can't be denied. We should be doing it. And that's when Chinese medicine as a system kind of picked it up and said, this is ours. Now, probably from somewhere in the Middle East, Mediterranean area, but it had made its way there long before 300 AD and kind of got solidified, codified into what East Asian medicine was. Really, it's interesting when we talk about using fire to adhere it. Every country does it a little bit different, and that's where the slight variations come from. Even the shapes of the cup changes a little bit based on how they would apply the fire. So my Italian students would all say, oh, you know, grandma used to put a big coin down and then, you know, soak a piece of cotton in alcohol and then light that on fire and then put the cup over it, right? So the idea is the coin, even though it was metal, the alcohol didn't have enough time to burn and make that metal hot, and it would create a vacuum, right? In Syria, they would make longer neck cups and they'd use a piece of newspaper, roll it up and light one end and stick it in. So fire never touches the person, but it gets a good suction. So it became part of that. It was taught as an adjunct. To get back to your question, it was taught as an adjunct to acupuncture. It is a great standalone therapy. Certainly, we have plenty of people that come in. They like doing it. It's a shorter treatment. In some cases, we can make it really intense. We get a lot of CrossFitters, a lot of people that work out really heavy, and they love, I guess, I don't want to say the bite of the cup, but that intense suction that goes on, and they can actually feel it working. But we can modify this. We can make it much milder. And if we're talking about the silicone cups, we don't press down as hard. You know, if we're talking about the plastic cups with a pump, we just don't pump as many times. So we can vary that to the person that we're working on's needs.
Right. You brought a new question. I
won't
forget my other one, but you know, just going back to that population, CrossFitters, or just anyone who just generally like works at the strength training, who's you know, to an effective amount that they're going to have sore muscles for some period of time.
Yeah.
Afterwards, is there any research or even anecdotal that it's like, you know, I'll just make something up. If I do my regular squat routine, it takes me 4 days to recover my legs.
Mm-hmm.
If I do my regular squat routine and I do cupping or acupuncture or any other thing, I can cut recovery by half or something like that.
I wish. What I will tell you is the research as it stands by the time I wrote that book, and I do look on PubMed, we had some really great systematic reviews. There was about 3 of them in the last 5 years or so that talked about acupuncture, cupping for pain relief. And you know, significant pain relief was noted in neck and shoulders and low back, right? The problem with these therapies is they cost nothing. They've been around forever. There's no big pharma getting behind them saying we need to publish research on this. So the research that's done is independent, which means that we have smaller sample sizes of people. We're not studying every aspect of it. I would say anecdotally, what I see in my clinic is, yes, people feel better quicker because we're increasing blood flow. I can't say that, like, look, it's going to help you get back to the gym and go harder from a study perspective, but I can say clinically, this is what we see pretty regularly.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
You know, I got to be
And
honest. You know, it just doesn't exist.
yeah, fair enough. And I was just going to say it's just speaking for myself, for the places that are like usually when I strength train that are like usually get the sorest are also the places that are the hardest for me to reach on my own. So
Yeah, and,
I
we talk
need some
about
help.
that. You might need somebody to just slap them on you.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about these silicone ones. Throw them in your gym bag. If you have somebody you work out with, if you have a trainer at the gym, ask them to push them on you. I even have some at my office that the largest one is about the size of a half a tennis ball, and you get 12 of them in the set going down. So you know we're having a hard time getting them on the forearm. Well, we got teeny tiny ones; those fit there. And you know, in your gym bag, it's about the size of a tennis ball. Not a bad little set, you know.
Yeah, and not expensive at all.
Not expensive at all. Most of them are around $20.
Yeah. The question I wanted to ask earlier, just going back to blood flow.
Yeah.
You know, we could talk about any of the modalities that you use in your clinic. It doesn't necessarily have to be cupping. Obviously, the skull is hard, but is there any modalities that you use that actually helps with blood flow to the brain, like to the?
Yeah. So this is interesting too, and I'll say this first, and then I'll get into the specifics if that's okay. The great thing about how our body works, and I'm going to specifically talk about the autonomic nervous system, which is two modes: fight or flight, rest and digest. With somatic therapy, with a lot of these therapies, right, that are psycho-emotional, we can affect this as well. If somebody's in fight or flight, they tend to have, and most of us are most of the time, there's vasoconstriction. Those blood vessels are tighter. When we do therapies, whether it's hands-on like massage or acupuncture, or even cupping, right, and people start to feel relaxed, our brain goes, oh, I'm relaxed. I'm going to trigger all of those parasympathetic, all of those rest and digest responses. So we're going to get more circulation systemically. So while it's non-specific, we will get more blood flow to the brain. With acupuncture, certainly, there are plenty of points on the scalp. There's actually new medical systems where they follow the neurological areas in the map on the brain that map to peripheral parts of the body that we can affect. We know that increasing acupuncture along the base of the skull, the neck, the shoulders is going to increase blood flow to the brain. At our clinic, we used to offer hyperbaric oxygen. And
I love hyperbaric oxygen.
It is a great service. What I found, and trying to be as authentic and honest to my patients, is if you're going to do it right, you're going to use it for like traumatic brain injury or autism or any of the thousands of off-label uses, because the soft chambers, technically, at least stateside, are only approved for altitude sickness. I'm in Baltimore. It's a harbor town. I'm at sea level. No one's getting altitude sickness, but we had a lot of people using it for a lot of quote unquote alternative therapies for all of these conditions. And there's research showing that it is effective. But to get the results, they had to be in my office 1 hour a day, 5 to 7 days a week. We were only open 6 days a week. And it's a pain in the ass to come to my clinic. The other thing is, I try to make my services affordable, but I couldn't charge low enough to make it cost effective for people.
Right.
If somebody wanted to do hyperbaric, I recommend they rent. For what they would have to pay me for a month of use, they can rent one, and hell, they could be in it for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. The other thing that happens, we swapped for something called exercise with oxygen. So it does make you move a little bit, right? We have a couple of different bikes, a recumbent one, and then we have an AI powered bike that kind of sees how much and tracks your workouts for you.
Right. I know what you're talking about. They're not sponsors of the show, so we won't mention their names.
Yeah, we don't need to mention names.
Yeah,
and I know
what
the brand name of our exercise with oxygen unit either. With that, what ends up happening is somebody figured out that when you sprint at high altitude, your red blood cells strip oxygen, right? Makes sense. I don't have as
Yep.
much oxygen coming in, but it alters the pH of the blood. And your body, when it gets oxygen, decides to stockpile it in the liquid part of your blood, right? We can only get to 100% saturation on red blood cells. You can't get more in there, but there's a lot more space in the liquid to absorb oxygen. Now, one way is putting you under pressure, hyperbaric, right? Hyperbaric, these chambers that we can get that are not for like burn victims or the big metal ones that are at 100% oxygen all the time that need like a lot of certification. And you want those people trained, knowing what they're doing. You can get hurt in those. The soft shell chambers give you about 30% more serum oxygen. That's oxygen in the liquid. And that lasts for about 3 hours. That's great. There's nothing bad about that. I'm not talking negatively about that at all. With playing with this physiological response of stripping it at high altitude and then switching to pure oxygen and then recovering. So you do these short little sprints, get your oxygen, and we put a pulse oximeter on you. I've had people get down to like 80% oxygen, which is kind of crazy because we want to be hovering around 98% saturation at all times. The monitor beeps and everything. You don't get dizzy, but short sprint, you recover at this 95% pure oxygen and it stockpiles it into the liquid. So the studies that we've seen, the company that we've talked to, and even talking to some respiratory techs, because I didn't think it was true, they're saying we can get up to 433% oxygen in the liquid part of our blood.
Oh, interesting.
Now that happens in about a 15 to 25 minute workout. Now, you got to be Usain Bolt to get that kind of oxygen in your bloodstream. You have to be, sprinting like a madman and then recovering efficiently. You have to have good VO2 max, right? Your
Right.
oxygen uptake. But most people will get significantly more oxygen in about 15 minutes that will last about 3 days, as opposed to 1 hour a day for 3 hours after. So Baltimore is a fighting town. We got a lot of boxing gyms, pros, amateurs. They would come in the day before a fight, and it kind of like, I hate to say this, almost like blood doping, right? I've increased the amount of oxygen. I haven't added any red blood cells though, so it's not illegal. And they would say, "Oh my God, I can't believe 12 rounds and I wasn't gassed." So this is all anecdotal, but we traded for this because it made much more sense to have somebody come in a couple times a week for 15 to 25 minutes. It was much more cost effective for them.
Right.
And the equipment is like, look, I got to clean a mask rather than have to worry about inflating this thing, which takes 15 minutes, and then deflating it slowly so your ears don't pop too much. And clinically, people seem to really love it. We see a lot of TBI with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've said this, two things I'll say. I've said this before. The next big, like, major ticket item I would buy for my house is probably an oxygen, my own soft shell chamber.
Yeah.
Primarily for primary use, but probably local clients, I'd probably have them as well. But I will share the one time I have done a hyperbaric myself. I had to go write an exam, a U.S. board certification exam a number of years ago. I had to travel to a different city. It wasn't being offered in my city. So long drive, I'm all tired, probably a bit dehydrated. And so I just wanted to connect with my friend the night before. I never met him in person, and he runs a medical clinic and health food store, etc. Blah blah blah. And I just had this massive headache. I was like, this is so weird. My back's all tight from driving and sitting for so many hours, etc. I was like, hey, like, I'd love to try it anyway, but like, can I just jump in? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, whatever, like an hour and a bit, I was in there. I was like, I had so much energy that night. Like I couldn't even like go to sleep. I'm like, I got this exam tomorrow. Like I need to like go to sleep. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, man, and I felt amazing the next day, like flew through the exam. I was like, did I mess up? Cause like, I have a third of the time left allocated to write this exam. And I'm like done. I'm like, did I miss a question? Like I felt amazing. So anyway, I'm a huge proponent of that. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying too. It's got to maybe be cost effective in a clinical setting.
And I love hyperbaric. If I had the space, I'd probably have a unit in my home. But trying to make things cost effective, trying to make things clinically applicable for people, and get, patient compliance, I guess is the term I'm looking for, getting people to do it. If I say, hey, look, you're going to have to do about 40 dives, and it's going to cost this much, and I need to see 28 days out of a 30-month cycle, how the hell can anyone working do that? So
yeah, it'd only be the people that are, so again, extreme TBI or some sort of diagnosis where they'd be all invested.
Yeah, I mean, we had a unit that we could it was like gumdrop shaped, so we could unzip it, roll somebody in a wheelchair, and sit them there. The problem is when those get bigger, those are more likely to fail, which is why you tend to see these long tubes that are like 28 inches wide. That seems to be the most durable size, which is why all the manufacturers seem to end up somewhere around there.
Yeah. So Tom, as we kind of come slowly to a close here, I'd love to ask just a couple more questions. And
sure,
obviously you're in the health realm. I'm in the health realm. This is not necessarily a health podcast per se, but I do like to ask all my guests, what's your morning routine, or what's like a non-negotiable for your health? That's not acupuncture or cupping.
That's not acupuncture or cupping, but related. So meditation, hands down. I have been, I say, trying to meditate since 1994. I've been consecutive for about 2,100 days now. So it took that long. But I think we're coming up on 6 years soon of never missing.
We're pretty close with consecutive days of meditation.
Yeah, and some things that like really I guess got me going was my mentor had always been a big proponent of it. He introduced me to his meditation qigong teacher. I got to study with him. I will no way say I'm a student of his, but at some point I guess I got old enough, mature enough to see the benefit in it. And I had wished that I had been consistent all the way back then. But I also am a gadget guy, and I see I got the blue light glasses. I've got the gapped headphones as well. But I've been using, without mentioning a product, a headband that tracks your brainwave activity and tells you when you're actually, I guess, meditating.
I got it behind me. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
and I absolutely love them. I love everything they're talking about. And I love all their updates and everything. So yes, I shelled out some money for a tool to do something that's essentially free, but of my quote unquote biohacking devices, it's something I use every day. I get so much value out of it. I like, people go, oh, wow, you're an acupuncturist, you must be so zen. And it's like, no, it is like, the inmates have taken over the asylum inside my brain.
Is that because you're from Long Island?
I think so. I think there's a certain amount, like, I'm like, why is everyone moving so goddamn slow? Everywhere we go, I'm like, we're still on the East Coast. It's a major city. I'm lapping people here. But yeah, it's part of that. But I don't fit the standard model of an acupuncturist either. But I gotta say, dealing with stress, dealing with emotional turmoil, dealing with just the day-to-day crap we all got to go through. I'm not saying, like, clearly meditation doesn't take that off your plate. Meditation doesn't change the situation, but it gives you some resilience. It gives you some solace. It gives you a place to go and just, okay, for right now, that's nothing else except this. And it takes a long time. I'm not good at it. I will admit that, but it is so important in so many ways. And I encourage everybody to do it.
I agree with you. I love that answer. All right, last question. What's some words of wisdom or like a golden nugget you'd like to leave with the audience today?
The meditation wasn't. I'm going to say this, and it relates to meditation, but everything else. We don't have to do these Herculean level efforts. What we need is consistency, and that is not the same amount every day. The rest of your life. Some days can be better than others, but that consistency and showing up in what we do is how we yield long-term results.
I love that. I love that. It's always, yeah, consistency. And yeah, again, I most days do 20 minutes, but when I'm in a rush, I only do 10.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Look,
I
man,
only do, if I'm traveling, I might only do 5.
there's been days where I'm like, look, I got a minute, and it's like, oh, is it even worth it to put the headband on, but yeah, let's do it,
Yeah. Awesome. So everyone, we're going to have all of Dr. Tom's links in the show notes. Connect with him on social, check out his website. You can buy the book at copyingbook.com, I believe, or whatever it is. It's in the show notes there. Definitely check it out. It's a super easy read, super practical, and walk you right through on how to do it. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Tom. I appreciate you being on the Deepak Saini Show.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a good one. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. So I'm going to throw it back to J23, who's going to play us out with some music. Also, don't forget to check out today's show sponsor at the end of this video. And again, thank you everyone for listening to the Deepak Saini Show. Remember, exceptional results for the exceptional you. Till next time. This episode is brought to you by Optimizer's Mass Zymes. This is digestive enzymes that helps you break down your protein, fats, starches, and sugars. I've been using this product for, over a year now, specifically in a protein-heavy meal, because I really want to break down my protein to make sure I get the amino acids that I need for maintaining muscle growth, maintaining lean muscle mass. Super important as we age and all stages of life, really. So again, huge proponent of Mass Zymes. Check out the link below to see how you can get at least 10% off, if not more. Cheers.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company